Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tooele Happy Hour podcast starring Jared Anderson and David Weiss, where if head trauma had a podcast, this is what it would sound like.
Yeah, for sure.
What are we doing today, Jared?
Well, you're the one that brought all the news stories. I was lifting drywall all day, so I'm empty-headed right now. But anyways, so what should we kick off with? The debt?
Well, let's just show off our new toys. So we got some new microphone windscreens.
Yeah.
Aren't they beautiful? They're colorful for, like the month of June.
Yeah, we got colorful windscreens.
Yeah.
Green, yellow, orange, red. There's a blue one in there and other colors.
We're very proud of them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a prideful thing. But so I don't know. And hopefully they aid us in not popping so much. Right?
Was the audio bad on the last couple of podcasts?
No, it's been fine, honestly.
Good.
It's been fine.
Well, so in the news, I mean, there's like so much going on. Like, what are we going to start our conversation off with?
Yeah.
That feeling?
Yeah, we may as well talk about that. The Republicans made a good showing of pretending like they were going to stop the national debt increase. They were slowing it down, demanding some cuts in particular areas. And of course, it probably wouldn't have been in areas that would have mattered much anyway. And the Democrats, of course, the party in power wants the Republicans, if they were in power, would have wanted to spend that amount of money anyway. It's just that people who are outside of the power party, they seem to not want the other party to spend money. But when they're in power, the Republicans have been just as good.
Well, if you look back in history, which you like to do, in 1985, we had a president named Ronald Reagan who, I think they wanted to railside him with this debt ceiling thing. And he didn't really need the votes. What he did a little gymnastics with his financial management of our funds. He actually asked his treasurer to do a little financial magic, and they dipped their hands into the Social Security Trust Fund, and they paid the bills that way, which in the future was deemed illegal by the comptroller, I believe. But the comptroller said, times were a little stressful at the moment, and he understands the necessity. So nobody went to jail for it. But the fact that you can just dip your hands in, which pot was it that they dipped their hands in first? Oh, Social Security.
Yeah.
Why not? The money of the peasants. So looking back on history, I'm going to say probably maybe 401ks could be a legitimate target in such situations.
I don't know why our government hasn't. I think that'd be a good idea to move Social Security into a 401k general market. One, it'll bolster the 401k markets, and then it'll remove that from government failure being I should say a direct cause, because if the government did fail, I think we would have some dips in the 401k anyway.
I think they're dipping anyway as we speak. I mean, even though they passed this deal, the stocks don't seem to really be going back up. Or maybe it's just the fact that they all went a little gay this month, and Budweiser and Disney crashed the whole system.
I mean, no, you've got Budweiser, Target. Apparently Harley Davidson made some deal with Budweiser, so maybe that's going to be an issue. And I have to say, I'm kind of proud of the conservatives this time for hanging on, because this has usually been a game that the that the left has pulled off, you know, boycotting Harry Potter or Chick-fil-A. But this time the Republicans, the conservatives have seemed to step up to the plate on that, which is kind of shocking to me.
But you know, you can only play chicken for so long before you get out of the way. And either way, either direction, you can pay off the debt by raising the debt ceiling again, or you can crash the country economically by not providing access to the funds. Either direction is bad news. There's no winning strategy for our economy. So what does that tell you about our future?
I wonder what would happen if they held off the debt ceiling. Would it really be a default?
No, because then they just do financial gymnastics and empty the coffers somewhere else.
But what would happen? How would that work?
Joe Biden just declares it so. He doesn't really need anything but some financial angles in another direction to pay these bills. We are, I think we're constitutionally obligated to pay these bills that we've racked up, and there's no getting around that.
You're probably right. But I just wonder what would happen. Because, I mean, I don't know. I heard someone make an argument that when FDR confiscated all the gold, that was a default on the people. I don't know, that it might be a stretch of the word, but I don't know. I wonder how that would look, and what would it look for the economy? What would it do? I don't know. But I mean, when we open it up, it says they're kicking the debt limit up to 31.4 trillion. That's supposed to last until where's it at? When was this story written? This might be an old one. I heard they were adding 4 trillion to the debt. Oh yeah, that's a dang year old. They're adding 4 trillion to the debt. Why did I pull up an old story?
Yeah, that 31 trillion was a long time ago. I think we're at 32, so it'll be like 36.
Yeah, 36. But anyways, they're adding that to the debt, and it's just every president just keeps adding to it. I mean, it's numbers that, you know, how many zeros can we tack on? At least now, though, we've hit a point to where I don't think we're going to see presidents doubling the debt of what the previous president did, just because the numbers are too vast to do it.
Are they really? I mean, 31 trillion is on its own. You know, like I said, I did the numbers once, and it would cost about every American about $4,000 a year for 30 years to pay it off. I mean, it's a mortgage for each individual. That probably, I think I calculated at like 332 million people having to pay into this pot. And can you imagine that? That's an unfathomable, unsustainable sum of money that we owe. And
It is.
we just keep on buying stupid stuff.
Where could we, I mean, just off the top of your head, where would you suggest trimming the fat?
Well, first of all, I'd end all this weird homosexual training in the military. All of it, like EEO complaint school and all these weird things. And then I would find a way to hold the elected members that receive a paycheck accountable to some degree by modifying their paycheck to the amount of debt that we owe and how much they have alleviated that pain throughout the year. And that's how their paycheck should be adjusted. It should have some sort of a formula that gives them penalties if they don't reduce spending for the next year.
I would like to see federal and our Congress, federal senators and our Congress paid by the states and their pay adjusted by their states.
I wouldn't argue with that. I mean, it's got to be a better methodology than
you
what we're
know,
doing.
so that they're kind of, because right now, where they're put in by popular vote, they don't seem to have any put in by popular vote, paid by the federal system. It seems like we lose a little bit of I don't know,
Motivation?
maybe a little bit of their what's the word again, brain dead, a little bit of their, you know, response to their states.
Yeah, and you can't blame them. I mean, they're on salary and they don't have anyone to manage them except for once when they get voted in.
I mean, like, look at AOC. What has AOC done for New York?
I mean, it definitely gives them a lot of news.
She's done a lot for the far left Democrat in the news, but she hasn't done anything for her district.
And you know what? I bet a lot of that is theatrical acting on both sides.
Sure. And I'm sure Republicans sit in the same boat. But I would like to think that if I sent a congressman or a senator to DC, I would like them to go up there and make sure they always say, Utah doesn't want this, or Utah would like this. Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, let's think about the legislation that we do get here in Utah. We get from our Republicans, whom I would imagine are for our liberties and freedoms, but they keep passing legislation that seems to make us, quote, safer. Like, you know, now you can't smoke until you're 32, or you can't buy vape until you're what? I think it's 21.
Yeah, 21.
But whatever. And then they put restrictions on online porn. Okay. Then they restrict this. Then they restrict
my favorite
that.
story of the year
How does this make me a freer man, though?
our state senator got a call in the morning. You dirty SOB. I can't believe you took my porn away.
How many people are probably out there considering voting Democrat now because of that?
And it could be. I mean, here's a big question. So me and Holly talked the elections the other night. There's a show up about it. It's the elections are heating up or something. I can't remember what I named it. But, you know, we talked about the Republican Party has a good offering. I mean, obviously there's Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, Kristi Noem. Who else is there? Gosh, I forget his name. Anyways, they've got a good offering out there. But how bad do you think the Republicans are going to fare because of the abortion issues? It still seems to be a pretty hot button issue.
Yeah, it doesn't seem logical in my mind. The only legislation that they pass successfully are legislations of restrictions.
Anti-freedom. And not that I'm pro-abortion, don't get me wrong. I like the states' rights idea of the Roe versus Wade thrown out. And then it went to the states, and a couple states outlawed abortion. And I'm not against that happening. But if you're looking at it from a political outlook, it could be a death knell.
How so?
It could make it so that people turn away from the Republican Party. I don't think there's 1% of the population under 34, granted that's a low voting margin, is pro that. And I'll bet when you get into the 34 to 50, they're kind of probably leaning more towards making abortion legal. And the older people are, I don't know where they sit. Granted, they are the largest voting bloc, but that does say something good about the Republicans. That the Republicans, even though it's unpopular, they still went with it because in their mind, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, but I hate to see them divert all of this energy and resources to bills of restrictions. Like, okay, it's wonderful that we're trying to protect our children, but it's wonderful that we're trying to stop abortion. It's, but everything is focused on restrictions, restrictions, restrictions. And truthfully, I like to spread the gospel of freedom. I mean, I spent 21 freaking years of my life dodging mortar fire and stepping over landmines. I like to think that it was for something other than putting more restrictions on idiots. And I don't think that idiots should have restrictions on them, because that's how God takes them out of the gene pool. I mean, if you really want to follow in the path of God, you got to give people the free agency to screw up and own their responsibilities. I think that's in the Book of Mormon, isn't it?
I don't know.
Something about free agency.
I'm sure it is. That's supposedly the argument that was had between Jesus and the devil, if I remember correctly. But I don't know. This debt ceiling's raising up. The Republicans tried holding out and, folded. They folded over the weekend so that maybe fewer people would catch on as quick. I wonder what the cuts specifically were they were asking for. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was anything useful. Our military spending is still going up what it was.
And the fact that I think we're still paying for transsexual operations for our troops in addition to their college. So, it's like, okay, we got to start cutting.
Yeah, we need to fold
back.
that into the GI Bill so you can have one or the other.
I don't even think you should have other, but
I don't know.
yeah, I don't see any way out of this trap. The country is going to continue to spend money.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to increase the debt, and it is an impossible quandary to even have the discussion of cutting back on our budget. That alone is too frustrating for our current representatives to consider. So if you can't have the discussion, you'll never have a result, which means, I mean, I don't want to say Bitcoin or anything, but if I did, I think we're in a losing situation. And, the sooner it crumbles, the better.
What do you think about governments pushing out a Fed coin? They're starting to talk about those.
Well, doesn't it come out in June?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, you can now, instead of using PayPal, Venmo, or any of those other apps like Square app, you can just use like fedcoin.com or something like that.
CBDCs.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and that's how they get you. They'll phase it in and then push everything else out, and before you know it, just there you go. All your money will be accounted for. Taxes will be billed to you at the end of the year, which might be a nice thing instead of having to do them yourself.
I don't know why we have to do them ourselves. Not with our tax code is insane. Just the way it's done. I want a flat tax so bad, especially where I did my own taxes this year. It's a headache. It's a headache just running through everything. And I've got to cheat on them using the TurboTax stuff, which is kind of a cheat. If I had to fill it out by paper, I'd be in handcuffs right now.
Well, you can probably use the AI robot pretty soon. I mean, you'll just say, hey, my name's Jared Anderson, and this is my account on fedcoin.com. Can you tell me what I owe in taxes? Seriously, it'll be that easy in the future.
It could be.
Or we'll just own nothing and be happy.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, anyone who thought that they would get any concessions on that were up in the night, or that the Republicans were making an earnest effort to get concessions. And I'm not trying to talk bad about the Republicans, because I'm sure that they see more of the budget than we do, and everyone there has to be white knuckling. Like I am, I'm a pilot, or I'm a stewardess on this ship, and this aircraft is going down.
The aircraft is going down, Jared. That is a great observation.
And then you hear the MMT, And I'd like to get that lady we had on a month ago back on. She does financial stuff. She could explain MMT to me, because I hear people talk about it, that this is kind of a MMT fiscal policy, and how does that work? So
MMT is modern monetary theory
Yeah,
for all of
and
you economic buffs out there.
I know nothing about it, and we should really invite her back on just to have like a little class.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll do any good. I mean, it's so filled with word salad and vague description.
I'm hoping she'd be able to break it down for us about what it is. What is modern monetary theory?
It's like hate speech, everyone's got their own definition.
Yeah.
But, speaking of politics, so this week, most of you probably have heard, but if not, Representative Chris Stewart is stepping down. He's going to go take care of his family. And he's got to. I totally get it. I'm going to miss the guy. I think we had a great representative in Chris Stewart. But it's going to leave a power vacuum, and it's going to be an interesting couple of months coming up.
Yeah. Yes.
So
He's talking about September is when he plans on stepping down.
So we got a little time.
Yeah. So, and if he steps down, will they kick off a special election prior to him stepping down, or do they wait until after?
Don't know. I mean, everyone's kind of holding their breath to see how all this is going to function out, because nobody really has a definitive answer yet. However, I do know that someone who was on our podcast previously, Cale Weston, he made a Twitter post. If you want to go ahead and throw that up there, he was the Democratic candidate who ran against Chris Stewart a couple sessions ago. Not the one that ran last. The last candidate to run against Chris Stewart on the Democratic Party was that Mitchell guy, the black scientist who wanted to make colored ink for tattoos for black people.
Yes.
Very interesting character. I don't know if he would have been a very good political candidate, seeing that he just didn't really seem to have a grasp on what's going on with the issues. But Cale, on the other hand, I thought was a pretty formidable Democratic candidate.
Yeah, and we like Cale. He's a friend of the show, even though we've had a hard time getting him to respond to coming back on again. Here's a throwdown to you, Cale. Come back on the show. All right, so let's go ahead and read what it says.
So this was on the 31st. Oh, you want to throw that back up there? Says, Cale Weston posted, "Yes, I'm seriously considering seeking the Democratic nomination in the upcoming special election in Utah's 2nd Congressional District, a big and beautiful urban and rural district that I know well and have deep family roots in across generations." So I think that's pretty much a statement saying, I want in.
Yeah. Now, we like Cale, especially as for a Democrat. He's rather, he doesn't seem to be a radical. He looks for a lot of the same things, single payer health care, or an option for single payer health care. He stands on a lot of the simple Democrat policies, but he doesn't go into the radical left wing. Now, I don't know, I'd like to have him back on. I'd like to ask him. A lot of our debates centered when we first chatted with him in 2019 about the riots. And it was even before the riots of 2020 kicked off. And, Antifa had its antics going already. And, I'd like to hear if he's had further thoughts on that. Because that's the militant wing of the Democrat Party as of right now. And he was rather soft on their message. Not soft. he wasn't hard on him. And I'm wondering if he's changed that outlook. But
You
we
got
like
you got to
him.
realize though, Antifa is a big part of the Democratic Party. I mean,
It really
whether
is.
they want to admit it or not.
It's their militant wing they send in when they need to throw some threats down and scare some people, you know. And I'm sure people will say that the Proud Boys are the same thing for the Republicans, but the Proud Boys are handicapped now, and the Oath Keepers, they're all going to jail. So, you know, and maybe they were the militant wing of the Republicans. It just seems weird. I watched the other day on an interview, a Democrat said, and the way they put it, they said, why is it that the Republicans have taken the flag for their own and we can no longer have the flag as the Democrat Party stuff? And so I'm screaming at the internet, you know, you gave it up. Your party had a newscaster go on the news and say she felt like she was in enemy territory because people had flags on their trucks. And that's what happened. That's why it's those feelings.
It's hard to use the American flag as your graphical icon if you burn them all.
Well, yeah, that is also true. That is also true. But, you know, I watched him ask that question, and you want the flag up, start hanging the flag again. It's that simple. Democrats out there, put the flag out on your flagpole if you want it to be yours. Hang it on your truck or, you know, Prius, whatever, with a Joe Biden flag. You know, no one's stopping you from doing it except your own people. Because if a Democrat was to hang a flag on their house, the militant wing of the Democrat Party has, over the last 3 years, gone up to people's houses with the flags, and if not ripped the flag down, they've actually knocked on the door and threatened the homeowner. So, I mean, you guys gave it up and let them run roughshod and do whatever they wanted and light cities on fire, kill 32 people in 1 year for protests. That's a lot to think about. But yeah, so Kale, I don't know. I like Kale. I think he got shafted by McMullen last election cycle for the Senate seat. I mean, would he have had a better chance than McMullen? Would the numbers have been better for the Democrat Party? McMullen ran as an independent. The Democrat Party backed him, which means the Democrats threw their money into him. And Kale was primaried out. But had that not happened, would Kale have polled better numbers? And I want to know how the Democrats felt about that. We just seem to get so few of them on here, and I forget to ask about it.
You know, speaking of Democrat heroes, Hugo Chavez replacement, Madero, President Madero of Venezuela, he went to Brazil to talk to President Lula.
Okay.
You know, and the reporters met him at the airport, I believe, and the news agency that kind of like is their version of CNN in Brazil is called Globo. And you won't see this in the news, but you know, you can, if you know how to dig, it's there. And so this reporter asked the president of Venezuela, as they were, you know, kind of following them, you know how reporters will do that kind of thing in free countries.
Yeah.
Well, the reporter, a female reporter for Globo, asked if Venezuela had any intention of paying Brazil back all the money that Brazil lent them in the past. And the response she received was quite startling. The security guards for President Maduro punched her in the solar plex, and she's goes down screaming, I'm being assaulted, I'm being assaulted. And well, you good luck trying to find it. I don't know. I'm looking in the American news and everything, but we might be slightly censored. But yeah, so if you do get the chance to ever ask Mr. Madero a question, don't ask him questions about anything he might owe another person, because you might get punched.
So
by
is
their
that
security.
that's the lady?
Oh, you found it. Look at that. Jared's so good at this.
That was the first thing that came up. It's just not so showing the video. Urgent. TV Globo reporters attacked by Maduro security after asking question.
Now, Brazilians think they're pretty free, and they act like they're free. And Lula he's a socialist, but he wants to be in with the hardcore socialist people like Putin and the Iranian Shah or whatever it is over there, and Madero. He wants to be in with those guys, but he's just not as accepted in that circle as probably he thinks he is. And his culture isn't used to the way that Venezuelans operate.
How crazy would that be if a question was asked by, say, a German reporter or a French reporter when our president's over there, and our security in a foreign land assaulted a reporter for asking a question?
Now, I did see the video. It's hard to kind of see the punch, but I would say I think his security didn't lay into her as maybe they would a man.
It doesn't matter.
Well, equality matters, Jared.
Well,
and
no.
I'm an equalitist.
But I'm just wondering, how crazy would it be if like, say, Biden went to France for a climate summit and the French asked Biden, hey, a French reporter said, hey, blah, 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 and the Secret Service assaulted them. How crazy would that be?
Well, it would be as crazy as this, I suppose. But I mean,
I think it'd be
these
crazier.
reporters should know better.
And imagine if Trump's Secret Service did it. The world might have popped like a zit.
Yeah, that would be bad for Trump. I mean, I think Biden's could get away with it, but
Maybe, but I still think it'd be a big deal. And that's something no one else is talking about. If you're hardy, look up protests in France. France has been in protest for months.
yeah, we should get a French guy on and talk about that maybe.
Yeah.
But this just fascinates me how much our news really doesn't cover anything going on in South America. It's really, they kind of just put the lens cover on it when they talk about what's going on in South America.
Brazilian, this looks like a Brazilian news site.
Yeah.
Brazil posts in English. They're the first ones that came up. So it's called postsen.com.
Right. And Brazil's trying to get friendly with Venezuela. They let in an Iranian warship to port and restocked it. And then it kind of just disappeared off of the news because I don't know why, but our government didn't seem like it mattered to track that warship in our territories after it left the port in Brazil. So I don't even know what happened to it after that, other than the news in Brazil said they would harbor that Iranian warship for a little while. Things are going on over there that, I guess I feel privileged to know about because my wife is Brazilian.
Yeah.
And
he probably hears about that.
I think that's big news when you punch a female reporter for asking a question
Well,
in
I mean,
a country that's supposedly a free world.
Well, not just that, but your security assaults a reporter in a foreign land because they asked you a question. That's insane. And then, I mean, how would you feel being Brazilian? And we feel like we're in a whiplash pendulum between our two presidents. They're going from one extreme of tidying up to the U.S. to the other, to building bonds with, you could call it kind of an outcast state. And then what's going to happen if this doesn't work out? Is it going to flop over again? I mean, that has to feel schizophrenic. Like, honestly, in that situation, I'd quit paying attention to politics altogether. I would check out.
Yeah, it's a scary moment over there for Brazilians. I have sympathy for them.
Yeah.
But what else did we say we wanted to talk about?
Well, we've got this, what do you call it? The Little Mermaid fight you talked about.
Oh, The Little Mermaid came out, and they changed things with the remake of Little Mermaid. Instead of a little redheaded white girl, the fish is now black. So, okay.
Fish.
All right. So what happens when you introduce that kind of a social gyration into the stew?
Well, I mean, okay, this incident, I hope, is not caused just because. Now, everything I read, it said this happened at Disney, which is kind of shocking to me.
Let's show the audience what happened.
But anyways, so they're in a Little Mermaid theater.
Someone asked you.
And you can hear them fighting. And there's like a fist fight, ladies fist fighting up there.
Oh, I need a refund on my ticket. No, we getting a refund because no.
And they want refunds.
I'm sure so you got Little Mermaid. This is a live action
We need a
Little Mermaid,
refund.
which I kind of think, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. And honest opinion, I don't care about if they. I mean, I'll just be honest. I don't care if they have a. I have no.
What are you trying to say, Jared?
I just don't care if they have a black person as the Little Mermaid or a white person or an alien. I don't care. All reports on it is it doesn't seem like, I've just read a few people like critiquing it. It doesn't seem like it's very well made, which seems to be where the downfall is when they try to make a, do you call it political message or whatever? When they try to make a message like that, it seems like they rush certain things to get the message out and forget about the value of what they're making. And I'm not saying this to be rude, or it just feels like that to me. And I know a lot of people are angry about it, and I don't even care if they're angry. I'm not going to criticize them for being angry about it. And I just hope that they start making good stuff. It does seem like we've run out of art, that everything's being remade now, though.
Yeah, everything's being remade. And I think the next Little Mermaid remake will be a Chinese boy with one arm that's also a midget. So that we could have to look forward to, maybe. And who knows, maybe they'll get it right this time. So good for them for going all cultural and trying to make everybody happy. But I would not invest in Disney right now.
I just think, you know what? If you're going to do something like that, that's going to be entered with criticism right off the start, you better not miss the mark.
Not only that, but people buy this Disney stock thinking this is going to be their future. And they play games with the stock over their ESG score or something.
I'm not even talking about that. If you're going to try to put a political message, right or left, into a movie or into music you make or into art you do, go ahead. But when you do that, don't miss your mark. The new Star Wars.
So bad.
They didn't let anything sit long enough. The new Star Wars was flashy action, zero story, zero suspense. The whole movie
It felt like I was watching a remake of the old plot.
without any of the suspense or story build up to it. You know, and then so they went to make a political message of women empowerment. Okay, great. Don't shoot and miss. Don't, if you're going to shoot that arrow at the apple, you better hit the apple. Don't hit him in the forehead. God forbid. And don't miss. Because then you just got a dude standing there with an apple on his head, which seems like they keep doing on this. They keep rushing these circumstances to get their message out. And sadly, every time they do that, it proves the naysayers correct.
And I'm starting to wonder if this has something to do with BlackRock and Vanguard being at the top of the apex of our economy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because there's so many queer cultured people in power within those two organizations that they're holding the purses for
Even
these
if it's
companies.
not them, our colleges have been teaching this forever. I remember 10 years ago, people saying, oh, our colleges are teaching this, but people will get into the workforce and they'll get a taste of real life and it'll go away. Well, we were wrong. They got into the workforce and they dug in their heels and they went harder. And I still think it's coming out of the colleges, but that leads me into my next story. Okay, this comes from the New York Times. We're reading from the heart of the beast.
All right.
It's time to rethink what's working in the modern workplace and what's failing. Amid a pandemic that overturned how so many work, increased calls for racial and social justice put a new pressure on companies to ensure, or at least to seem as if they ensure, equality among their employees. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI programs are an increasingly popular solution deployed by management. But do these initiatives do marginalized employees any good? And who are the true beneficiaries of diversity programs anyway? Jane Coaston has spent years on the receiving end of diversity initiatives, and for that reason, she's skeptical. In the military or Department of Defense, I believe it's called SHARPS training, correct?
Sharps training is, yeah, there's an element to it, but mostly it's about raping people.
Okay, so that's the sexual assault stuff.
Yeah.
Sexual harassment, assault, remediation,
Reprisal.
policies. Super fun. I don't know. Sharps. But anyways, she's skeptical. To debate DEI programs' efficacy, she brought together Dr. Sonia Kang, an associate professor of organizational behavior and human resource management who studies identity, diversity, and inclusion at the University of Toronto. This is even coming from Canada. And Lily Zhang, a DEI strategy consultant and public speaker to argue what works and what doesn't when it comes to making workplace fair for all. Okay, so
they have professors
they're
that have degrees in this kind of dumb stuff.
they're not digging into this. Anyways, they're just talking about who did it and advertising program. So anyway, these professors did their study, and we got to go from the New York Times because they're not telling the story. I should have known. I shouldn't have clicked on the heart of the beast. So now we're going to Workist. Diversity and inclusion are buzzwords floating around Silicon Valley and beyond. When does this training help and when does it hurt? There's a study that came out. I just heard about it. I should have read about it beforehand, but for some reason, all this stuff. Anyways,
Give us the scoop.
they came out and it said, oh, these diversity trainings have a negative effect on what they're trying to achieve.
Well, that depends on who you are. If you are
No.
if you're the people in charge of BlackRock who want to spread more of this
It hurt
gayness,
them. You know who it doesn't hurt?
rich people.
No, it doesn't hurt the activists that go around and hold companies hostage unless they pay them to put on one of these classes,
They probably benefit from it.
like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. Those are the only people that they benefit. But looking at it, it has an opposite effect on minorities in the workplace. That's what they found.
Yeah, but is that really the intent, is to help the minorities? Is that really their intent?
It's a pretty good question. I mean, heck, if you got a grift, you got a grift, right? But the companies are buying into this, having a negative effect. So let's say a company that's pretty big here in town, Detroit Diesel, jumps on this bandwagon.
Did they?
I don't know. But let's say they do. And they host this training thinking they're doing a good thing. They're being held hostage by Jesse Jackson or a clone of him to host this, diversity, equity, and inclusion training. And it has a negative effect that harms employees that are of a minority background out there. Do you see what I'm saying? Because all the studies are showing it has a negative effect. That you start out before the training here, some bad, but mostly on the level. After the training, a little bit lower. After the training next year, a little bit lower again. Which I don't know if these people these grifters know it does this, but it's a boon for them that they hold a training that has a negative effect of what they trained for. So they have to come back and hold said training again and again and again. And each time it gets worse.
Yeah. But what is getting worse? Is it their morale? Is it their perspective on life? Is
No,
it
it's
their
the way they're treated by their coworkers.
because they become more compartmentalized, maybe as like a racial group?
It could be. I don't know. It could be. It could be that they withdraw from their coworkers and they're jumping at shadows, or it could be their coworkers like, this is stupid BS. I had to come in and do this crap on my day off, or
Just because there's a black guy in the office. That's what they're probably thinking. I had to come in
It could
and
be.
do this just because there's a Chinese midget with one arm.
it could be. I don't know. I don't know. It could be both.
So then you get resentful.
It could be both, that the white employees feel like they get resentful, and it could be that the black employees start jumping at shadows, which would make it worse again.
Yeah. And I won't lie. Like, okay, so I've had to experience this where they'll take everyone at Dugway away from their workstation and put them in the auditorium at the school and talk about transsexual stuff. And, I don't think there was any trannies at Dugway, but if there was, I would probably be like, oh, well, it's because of Pat. Right? And I can see myself saying that.
It could be, and Pat could be like, why are you pointing this spotlight at me? And then Pat feels worse. So it could be any of the number of things. It's just the study came out, and I'm sorry, people, that talking about the Little Mermaid just popped it in my head. I heard about it offhand last week, but the study came out. It came from a college in Canada, in Canada. And of all places, even they said, this stuff's stupid. We shouldn't do it. It has a negative effect. Could it be the way they're holding the training? Sure. I don't know.
Yeah. But here's some of the positive benefits for the queer community. So you can't reproduce biologically if you're queer. You just can't.
Sure.
So they have to find other ways to add to their community.
Okay.
And I think this is helping because people are starting to come into this circle that states, hey, look, I get social validation if I move towards this angle of life. And then maybe they try it out. Maybe they try the gay sex once or twice, and then they're in the queer community.
Just to further validate their social.
Yeah.
They just give it a little.
Well, everything wants to reproduce, Jared.
give it a
Everything.
little test.
And if you can't reproduce biologically, you have to do it in some sort of a parasitic formation or a methodology.
I just imagine that. I gotta take one so that I'm.
You got to make friends. Or as they say on the submarine, you got to try it at least once to make sure you don't like it, right?
Oh goodness.
But
That reminds me of there was Douglas Murray and another writer doing a talk, and they were kicked out of the gay community because Douglas Murray's a British conservative, the other guy's a British liberal, which if you're in England, a liberal over there is essentially like a moderate Republican over here, because the word liberal has been tanked over here. But anyways, they're talking about how they got kicked out, and the one guy said that some gay magazine called him what was it, an imposter plant, and he said something to the effect of, I'm really making big sacrifices if I'm an imposter, because they're both gay men.
right.
And I fell out of my chair when I listened to that. But I don't know, the DEI, maybe we're boiling to a head. I still think we're hitting a pendulum swing. I do. And I'm afraid that when the pendulum swings back, the right wing is going to be pretty radical. That's a concern of mine. You know, young males are looked down upon in our society right now to some extents that are crazy. And granted, sometimes they need to be, but the society has almost completely turned their back on them. Forget about young white males. They may as well just be shunned and outcasts. And I'm afraid that when that pendulum swings back, it's going to hit us. And then we'll have to sit here and critique that. So at least we'll still have a unpaid job, a gig. All right.
Let's get to some comments.
Let's do our comments. So Mally May says, hey, homies, people are sick of all this. They are burying themselves. But in all of this, good films are still coming out. People are starting their own thing or doing crowdfunding. And that is correct. Hollywood is dying. We're looking at a sea change, I think. And gosh, I hope it keeps going, because one of the signs of a collapsing society is the art kind of goes to crap. And that's a concern, because I really don't want to be in a collapsing society. But then again, the debt limit gets raised, or debt ceiling. I'm going to change the words. I'm going to go to my bank and talk to them about my debt ceiling tomorrow.
Yeah, raise that sucker.
Yeah.
She also says many of our churches are compromised as well.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure. I mean,
I think it's,
yeah, it makes sense.
you know, I don't think it's churches on the whole, though the leadership might be, but I think we're looking at an urban rural separation between a lot of this.
Yeah.
I think so. I don't know.
Well, you know, a lot of people give churches bad raps when it comes to like the sexual molestation of young boys and stuff like that. But believe it or not, you're much more likely to be molested as a young boy in school than you are in church still to this day. The odds of the corruption happening is still much higher in schools than it is churches. So
The big difference is at least there's a chance of a female molesting you in school.
yeah, that has been happening lately.
Yeah, we see it happen all the time. Okay, Chris says, I've been monetized. I have companies / past customers because of my political leanings and opinions. Companies that quit using my company's services. And that is crazy. That is crazy that they would choose to turn away from a good product because of political leanings, but that's what the Republicans are doing now. And I kind of hope they stick with it. I do. Let's face it, the Democrats have leaned off all this crap. The Democrats, the ultra left Democrats, have been calling the Republicans fascists for 12 years now. And then last year, the Republicans came up for a word for the left Democrats. They started calling them groomers. And the Democrats couldn't, they were throwing stones in glass houses because their knees buckled. They banged their head on the floor and started crying about the groomer thing and demanded Twitter take it down. And the Department of Justice, needs to have the FBI look into people who say groomer. But the Democrats kicked that off by calling everyone on the Republican bench fascists, which is, that's not a small claim either. So that's pretty big.
Yeah. And it was only a couple months ago when Facebook decided to delete my business page off of its platform.
Your chocolate page?
Yeah. I don't know which one it was. Maybe it was the chocolate Chobama bar
The
that I made.
Chobama. If you
or
guys- if
the
you
Let's
guys
Go
want to,
Brandon.
Send a message to Dave and say, Dave, send me a picture of Chobama. Or the Let's Go Brand. But the Chobama is fantastic. It's an awesome chocolate bar that he made that I think is just awesome. So message him privately or whatever. Maybe you can just post it to the happy hour page. See what happens. We'll see if that's what it was. Maybe we won't be here.
Well, I don't want to have our page deleted for my folly, but yeah, it's a little sensitive out there in the environment these days, and I'm sorry that you experienced that, Chris. Because
Yeah,
if
I am
you
too.
have companies that you would recommend that have stuck with you, feel free to tell me more about them.
Maybe that's the thing to do is maybe we need to start being vocal with each other saying, look, this company knocked me out because of my political beliefs. And then your friends and compatriots can say, okay, I'll no longer deal with that company. I'll find one of their competitors. We need to, I believe, and maybe this is a negative effect, but I believe we need to make it a point. Tell companies, stay out of politics or you lose business. All right, O'Malley May says, we need to break out of our echo chambers and reach out to each other. We are each divine, sovereign individual. With all the suffering in the world, it's easy to get swept up in the vast array of corrupt ideologies and practices. You must have a solid moral foundation or you will be swept away. People are joining cults now more than ever. The truth is being suppressed. But it is out there if you just look honestly and with humility. Outstanding words. Outstanding words. Okay, we got 1 minute left. Dude, so we had the shooting range this last weekend, and I was moved by some spirit on the last day. It was, I had an epiphany. I need to put it into paper or something. Not to speak is to speak, not to act is to act. The truth shall set us free. Thank you guys for what you're doing. That again from O'Malley May. All right. Thank you guys for listening. We're going to close this out. I wish I remembered what I said at the range. So I
Some
could
sort
say
of
it
an
again.
epiphany.
Oh, it was a sermon. It was beautiful. I mean,
Hallelujah.
even I'm looking at it and saying something intelligent fell out of my head. That hole on my head, it seemed pretty good. But anyways, you guys have a wonderful night. Well, Dave will be on tomorrow. Who do you got on tomorrow, Dave?
Scott Wardell from the Tooele County
Yes,
government.
yes, we've got our he's our county commissioner, Scott Wardell. He's going to come on, talk about what's going on there. Update us on what's going on in the county. I won't be here. I'm going to a little league ball game. If I can make it back in time, I will, but we'll see. And O'Malley May says, that's called the Holy Spirit, brother. Maybe I had the Holy Spirit. I was moved. Well, if the Holy Spirit's hanging out in me, I feel bad for him because
Also, just before we close the show, just on the 10th, we have a very important event going on. June 10th, the Hope for Life Foundation.
yes, June 10th, Hope for Life Foundation. I've been meaning to chat about that, but keep talking about it, Dave. I'm going to pull up the picture and we're going to do an online share.
So the Hope for Life Foundation is a foundation for, like veterans who just, you know, maybe they're living in a bit of a despair and they need a pick me up. And this is a charity event. It's like $50 for a seat, but it's going to a good cause. It is a 501c3 organization, so you can write it off on your taxes, and it's going to be a good time. We're going to be there. We'll probably do interviews or something for the show, I'm sure. But yeah, even and it's worthy. It's definitely supporting local. The individual who built this charity is local, and he even has a new book out. He's a great guy. His name is Hope, thus Hope for Life. But
Blair Hope, you can find him on Facebook. It's Hope for Life Foundation. They have a dinner there. They're going to have raffles and prizes and things like that. But it's the second annual banquet fundraiser, Save a Veteran. He does like a getaway for men that are veterans, but also, you know, men that are struggling with, you know, things that are affecting their life in a negative way. So it's at the Deseret Peak Complex, 5 to 10 p.m. on June 10th, 2023. The Deseret Peak Complex is 2930 West Highway 112 in Grantsville. It's that road that goes between Tooele and Grantsville. You can't miss it.
And I pinned it to our Facebook page, so there's plenty of opportunity to come see it if you just click on our Facebook page. Don't forget to subscribe and like and all that other weird stuff the algorithm makes us do.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, I mean, go check it out. You know, if you want to get involved and help them out, by all means, go help them out. They're great guys. All right. O'Malley May says, you are definitely feeling it. We just love you. And we love you, O'Malley May. My feeling the spirit. She says, our veterans need our love so much. They need to know what they did was for nothing. And this is wonderful. And that's true. You know, it's a very good thing to get involved in. And you can also just make donations. If you just want to make a donation, one-time donation to the Hope for Life Foundation, I know he would gladly accept that. You know, he helping guys out, guys helping guys. There's lady veterans too. So vets helping vets. But anyways, everyone, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in with us. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend coming up, and Dave will see you guys tomorrow night.